Hello, this is Marv Gardens reporting. This is Poly Mondays. And in this podcast today, I will be talking about the political system of today. Something like that. Not really sure. This is one of those typical Monday through Friday things. And what that means is that basically instead of dealing with, I guess, things that are airy in nature, such as random discussion of religion, we'll be dealing with things that are more rigid in nature, like politics, history, pop culture, stuff like that. But today is Poly, and I'm gonna try to make some sense. So, I guess the first order of business would be to investigate what's going on right now. There's a political race going on right now, and I guess for the politicians it's a breeze, but for the political activists, it's not so much a breeze. I mean, I think it's been like this since forever. People have always struggled to remain relevant in the day-to-day activities of politicians. And politicians are like, I feel like they're like chess players, except they don't move the pieces move themselves. And not to say that people are as dispensable as a chess game. What it is to say, though, is that people definitely make politics predictable. And what that means is that being a politician is not necessarily about telling people what to do or to believe in me, some stupid stuff like that. It just means that you can always expect as a politician for people to react one of two ways. Either they like it or they don't like it. And that can lead to, as we see, a lot of stuff. Which, it's the calm before the storm because, excuse me, I'm eating a sandwich here. It's the calm before the storm because basically, once somebody is chosen to get into office, that's it. People are no longer relevant. The bureaucracy takes over and they just wait for orders to come down to the little people. And is there anything wrong with that? Probably not. But if there was, what would be the problem? Because as we've seen in history, and we won't get into history, that's tomorrow. But as we've seen in history, men with power tend to attack people like flies. And what that means is, once you see a politician is able to exercise something you wouldn't normally be able to do in your day-to-day activities, it's gonna make you feel a type of way. But most people, it's like, it just shows that my job is to listen. For other people, they be like, I want that. That is, I'm not gonna critique it. I always try to walk away or avoid critiques. But I mean, that's just another consequence of politics. But back to the main focus. This political race, it seems that big business is stepping up. And what that means is that basically they expect a lot of things to happen in the office finally. Because the problem that's been going on with contemporary politics is that you got these people like Barack Obama who in effect have little to no power. And not to spit on the president because he still is the president, but what that basically means is that basically he gonna always have a rambunctious Congress. And the problem of a rambunctious Congress, as we've seen since his original presidency, is that everything is a problem. And I guess that keeps things interesting. That just goes to show that, the president is not a dictator. The president is not a king. The president is not anybody that's allowed to do what he wants, when he wants it, how he wants it, just because he wants it. But it does show a pattern to American politics. And American politics can at times get watered down by the mood of the nation. And what that means is that people or other countries can look at American politics more of a joke or more as an extension of celebrity status. But it's really deeper than that. It's much deeper than that, especially if you pay attention. Because American politics has, for the most part, moved towards basically who and who cannot control Congress. And that one statement, controlling Congress, means a lot. Because you can't control Congress with power. You can't be Congress's friend. Congress is a lot of freaking people. You can't. There's just too many different problems with reaching Congress. So, what I'm saying is that a specific method is necessary in order to engage Congress so that Congress can be pacified. And I feel like big business is going to be that pacifier. Specifically because a lot of people in Congress make a lot of money. So, they're going to be tempted to listen to somebody that makes more money than them. And somebody that makes more money than them is probably going to end up making money for them if they listen. So, in other words, those two approaches with Congress with force and friendship were overridden because an American principle was used in the form, or an American principle will be used, when big business takes the office, and that's that of status. Status is a very important American concept. Who you are to the public eye will always determine what you do in America. And I guess that's a form of a caste system because public eye is going to be attracted to celebrity. Or at least somebody who stays, relevant to day-to-day news and, yada, yada, yada. But in order to accomplish this, you have to have an accomplishment. And that just goes back to status. So, it's like, in other words, what America has truly been missing and what America may most likely get is a truly American president. And that's, that may piss a lot of people off, but I'm like, when I look at these activists and stuff, I see the energy, the desire to be involved in what's going on right now. To not be one of those people that be like, fuck voting is stupid. Uh, they don't count votes. They just do any, mini, money, mo. And I feel like I'm not gonna critique you and say that you aren't doing anything and you don't know what you're doing. I'm just gonna tell you that your energy and devotion is going to be overshadowed by American principles every time. Because ultimately, if you know what it means to be American, if you truly know what it means to be American, then you as a political activist are going to realize that being American and being active in the political system are two totally different things. Trying to do both? No. That's a no. And you can argue that too, but I guess how can I say I guess? There's no guessing here. What I'm trying to say is that American principles will always dominate. And in order to accommodate this, I'm rhyming. See, in order to make this point more approachable by other opinions, is basically saying that America will always move when an American leads it. There are people in this country right now that are probably worried that America is stuck in a standstill right now because America isn't doing American things. So if you look at the news, you look at what politicians are engaged in. America isn't really being America right now. Especially when you're going back to the Ronald Reagan era and all that shit. And I'm like, Nixon, them guys right there. Most people say America wasn't America until Freddie Roosevelt hit the office, but I feel like the real side of America was captured in Reagan and Nixon. But no history. What I'm trying to, a little bit of the Bushes. I give the Bushes that I give the from Bush Senior. I'll even give Bush Junior the benefit of the doubt. But those jumps in history, America hasn't really been America because the principles which have guided America, namely capitalism and status, have not always been pushed in the public agenda. And in order to keep the public agenda relevant, to keep the public agenda rejuvenated, you must move the things which move the country, which is capitalism and status. Had a brain fart for a second. Once you accomplish these things, you will probably make more progress than these guys, these little nerd egghead guys that sit in laboratories all day trying to pull an Einstein or whatever. And that's just the truth, man. So, what does this mean for America? It means that big changes will be happening very soon. Big changes. A lot of people are not gonna like it. A lot of people is gonna like it. But feelings have never guided America, to be honest with you. That's more for the college kids and stuff to read about. American sentimentalism is more of a it's a library concept, man. You want to learn about American sentiments to read. But what this is basically going to lead into is that business will definitely change for the better because a president which has built their life around business will understand America in a telescope that most people can't understand. And not to over hype status because status is everything, but how you build your status will definitely determine how extraordinary as a person you are. And I use extraordinary in the sense of how you stand out, not in a compliment or a sense of flattery. So what that does is tell you that businesses will probably start making, I guess, radical changes to how they go about things. And it may or may not cause people, I'm telling you now, it may or may not may or may not cause people to lose their jobs. However, this is life. Business will always be the determiner of American currency. The dead presidents told us that America's welfare was captured in their currency, but I think it's rather the opposite. The currency is the determiner of America's welfare. And what that means is that if businesses aren't doing their job to keep American currency relevant throughout the world, then America will quickly fade out of the historical limelight. That may not necessarily be the best outlook as to dealing with money and talking about money. But you must understand that a nation in totality has no use for money until that money is useful to other people. You get how this works? And in order to make American currency useful to other people, businesses must do what they do to remain on top. Not just in America, across the world. Because another aspect of life that has changed in terms of political systems, in terms of governance, in terms of how people go about things is in relation to other things, to other people, to other nations. The world ain't about who got the biggest army no more. The world is not about who got the most tanks. The world is not about who got the most planes. The world is not about who controls what anymore. This is not a land battle. This is not a naval battle. This is not a sky battle. This is a people battle. People are going to always be how currency remains relevant. And not even just saying about, we just talking about if people need money or want money. No. We're talking about if money and people make sense. And for these things to make sense, businesses must make it make sense. You get what that? You see how this works? It's not. It wasn't about power. It started with power, but power ultimately, people. That was the whole point of the history books. Basically showing you what happens when people just say "fuck it." I want to run the world. You can't do nothing about it. It's gonna always be unstable ground to base your principles on. So what happened was that the ground was shifted. Instead of making the ground about power, they made the ground about business, which started with people. So in order for the world to be governed as it needs to be governed, people need to make policies and make moves which affect more people. If you cannot do this, then business was done for nothing. So this political race isn't about, who is the most qualified in 2016. Because to be honest with you, qualifications was the guiding principle of why the seat of the American presidency was so coveted. Because they said basically that you don't have to be shit to be the president. You just have to do shit to be the president. And that's how they got a lot of people. So once the smoke clears and it's time to really get serious and say who's going to be the next president, people need to start working into their minds how business is going to work for them. And once you're able to do this, now you're back into the umbrella of politics. Because business will work for you, provided that there is a lot of you. If there is not a lot of you, then business probably don't want you. And not to say that people are number games, because numbers lie. People lie about numbers all the time. Numbers can be changed. Numbers can be exaggerated. Numbers can also be inaccurate, most importantly. And that is why people and numbers are not necessarily the rocks, the foundation of this political system. They're just one of many pillars upon which political governance is based. And in order to understand this, you must first understand that business will lead to these things. People and business go hand in hand. If your business cannot relate to people, then it won't exist. Don't matter how you could put $100 gajillion into the business. If people be like, why do I need this? Then it won't work. So, in order to do yours for your political future, you must realize that business is taking over in a method, in a manner that is most appropriate for this stagnant country right now. And I use stagnant because current policies, current political focuses have all been for the people. But as you can see, working for the people with no business, what can we really say has been accomplished? Not to say that people aren't important, but I'm saying people have shifted importance. And what this means is that since America, I mentioned earlier about American sentimentality. American sentimentality has led to a people-focused political governance, and this political governance focused on people has not. You haven't broken any textbooks, any history books. You haven't done anything radically significant. Because to be honest with you, history records the bad things, the really bad things, all the bad things and the really bad things, and only the really good things. Regular good things don't get counted, because then it's not history at that point, it's news. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that this air of tolerance that has pervaded the you know the common air has not been anything new. Tolerance has been around since history books can remember, and even then they weren't significant until they started really like affecting large groups of people. So in other words, the hard battles for tolerance have already been fought and won, making anything that has occurred now or needs to occur now irrelevant. So how can the next, I guess the next big question then is, how can business break the mold? The first, I guess industry, right? We need a new industry. How that goes about getting done, I'll never know. But a new industry is definitely necessary because repetition guarantees revenue. Repetition, however, does not guarantee success. Meaning, just because the same old works doesn't mean it will continue to work. Doesn't mean it will always work. And I feel like in this comfortable position America is in right now, that's a radical idea to say. That moving away from fundamentalism is the key to American politics, when fundamentalism is the very grandfather of America. And not to start quoting documents and stuff, but people have only cared about fundamentalism as far as it affected them. And that works when you try and get things to work. But once things start working, fundamentalism is no longer a useful concept. It's more of a hindrance at this point, especially since we are in a new century. This is not the 1900s. The timeline of events that occurred in the 1900s are reminiscent of a different mood in a different America. America changes every 100 years, whether people admit it or not. And I guess we could say that America will always follow the trend of hitting every new century slow and then catching up somewhere in the middle and then slowing back down towards the end to prepare for the new century. But I feel like that fundamentalist move will ultimately inhibit how America is able to make those textbook moments. And how fundamentalism does that is by affecting the youth. You see, most parents have that 19th or 20th century mentality that they got from their parents and their parents' parents and yada yada yada. That 20th century mentality has pervaded the 21st century mentality more so than most people will admit. And not to say that's harmful, because if people are better people because of it, you can't really argue with that. But the real question you have to ask yourself is that, are you a person And that's a question that most youth cannot answer because they are so instilled with fundamental values. What could you even use as your counter thesis to that? Then again, trying to express yourself as a person in any way, just without thinking or just without going about it in a logical way will probably be just as harmful to say. So in other words, political governance in its own effect is making it so that youth are losing their identity as youth. And what that's going towards is basically saying that youth will ultimately be end up becoming more like their parents, more so than what they want to become, because they will be governed, they will be led to believe that this is the only means of success. And that within itself is just an attitude of America that will take a lot more than people oriented politics to fix, because I feel like that's also been a symptom of America, that people have gotten also used to influencing for their way. Once you start to get used to influencing for your way, being influenced by another way becomes 100 times more difficult. This, I don't know, because there's a lot of kids in America, so I can't really say I'm speaking from like a Census Bureau type of perspective here. However, I can say that if you think about the presidency and what made it worthwhile to people, will probably put you in the right position, because the presidency in its not in its totality, in its individuality, wasn't a groundbreaking event. I mean, we're not talking about winning a war here. There we go. Like, to put things into perspective, we were simply talking, once we get back to the original presidency, we were only talking about a person who was statistically disadvantaged to getting into office. And that's where the fundamentalism started. Once things became about people satisfying their own, you know, I guess, the superficial needs in terms of what they want to see versus what they need to see, then political governance was erroneous in their decision to move people with I guess an aesthetic an aesthetic of society versus a magnitude of society. And what I'm trying to say, in less flossy words, is that American political governance has pacified American people with you know, social cultural achievements versus the industrial achievements which have made America on par with the UK, on par with the Chinese, on par with Russia, on par with, you know, everybody else. And that's, I can't say it doesn't help because balance is always necessary in politics. If you spend too much time on a numbers game, if you play too much of a numbers game versus a people game, then your political system will always suffer for it as well. So I can't say I didn't see the rationale. What I'm trying to say is that was the rationale truly far reaching in its goals, which we'll never know until later. But as a mini historian, you can say that steps will always suggest the incident at hand. So what that means is that you don't need to know the future, you just need to know where the future's at. And you can always tell that by seeing the direction the country is walking towards. And I feel like even the government itself has noticed that they have spent too much time focused on people politics versus national agenda. And I feel like that's why big business has stepped up to sober government. And I be like the smelling salts for them, because I feel like the bureaucracy is very sensitive to change, and that change can lead to reactionary policies, such as um political relations, public relations policies and stuff. And that does get things done. It did. It has. Definitely showed that the government is paying attention to how people respond, how people are feeling, and how people are thinking. But ultimately, on a grown-up level, the government should not um, entertain the whining child, because as we know, if your child as an infant, as a baby, is doing what they want to get their way, and you entertain your child in this manner, these habits will lead your child into a very selfish persona. And I feel like the government encouraged selfishness with their past policies. So who but big business will be most educative in showing the balance between selfishness and sharing, as you would say, because most people would even back in the 20th century, people have not even the 20th century, since the beginning of time. What am I talking about? The beginning of time, people have always been suspicious of politicians as being greedy, being abusive, being corrupt, and all this other stuff. But in reality, it's always been an unspoken word, an unspoken an unspoken agreement that, for better or for worse, the government does for you, even if you may not get it immediately. So, what political governance is accomplishing through this presidential race depiction is that they do understand that they have been taking breaks. They have been, basically appealing to the people on a more humane level, but ultimately that it is time again to, do government things. And in order to do government things, you need government resourceful people. And big business is the only people who have the resources to affiliate with government in a way that will lead to quick results, quick and useful results. Because business teaches you from small to high that the efficiency of your business is dependent upon the utilization of your resources. And how that works is that if you get good at using little to get a lot, once you get a lot, after that, you're not even getting it anymore. You're basically the idea behind business is that you struggle as a small business, and when you make it to big business, that's your returns. And this concept is a very, very, very important precedent of American culture. You reap what you sow, as the as the Bible would say. And I feel like this is a concept that's very important for all Americans, whether you're religious or not, because we all have a religion, which is government. And this government belief, however you manifest it, for positive or for negative, will determine how effective you are as a citizen. And from there, how effective you get as a citizen will determine how much you look at the government. So, I feel like this presidential race right now is very, very important because we have the opportunity to create for America a better future. And if we do not do this, we will put ourselves into a spiral of self-satisfaction, of self-indulgence. And this can be very harmful because selfishness does not lead a country. Selfishness tears a country apart. If people get more worried about people problems versus government problems, then the government will suffer and the people will think that they won. And not to sound like the government, but you must understand that at the end of the day, a political system must always recognize when its survivability is in danger. And not danger in the sense of revolution, not at all. Danger in the sense of, are we doing our job, or are we just sitting in government offices all day doing nothing? And once you answer this question, then you can understand why government does what they do. So, the whole mood that anybody who's trying to be a political activist should be at this point is addressing all the ins and outs of all, what you call it, of all presidential campaign runners. And the reason you do this is because you will not remain, you will not be a serious component of political governance unless you prove yourself a utility of effective governance. And what this means is that in order to be an active political person, you must analyze in a real life situation people who are trying to make decisions that will affect you and those around you. And once you're able to accomplish this, then you've done your job better than anybody who has put a ballot into a box will ever do. So, those who are not engaged in politics as an activist or any form of affiliate, you necessarily do not have to contribute. That was the beauty of America. However, understand that this decision to be inactive is it's like you're basically signing your opinion away. Meaning, if you decide that your participation in politics is not relevant, or that your participation in politics is not to your advantage, then understand that when politics works for your advantage or disadvantage, you are not in a position to argue or to have any feelings about it. Because politics is not like it's not magic. Politics is not it's not like a video game. It doesn't happen overnight, nor does it happen immediately. It's something that's gradual, which makes your role in it ever the more necessary for uh, its accomplishment. Because if there's no people to govern, government will always be 100% inefficient. And that's just the principle that most people overlook about government. The idea that a government cannot make policies that do not care about people, because policies that do not affect people are not policies. That's just a bunch of people blowing hot air. So you must always take into consideration that your government will always be working for you whether you want them to or not. Because if they don't work for you, they're not working for anybody. So, I guess to wrap everything up, this political race and its resulting and the resulting office seat will determine whether America is just going to turn back, it's just going to stay into this I guess pacify a diaper situation, or if America is going to throw away the diaper and the pacifier and go back to more wide-reaching policies. And I guess this is kind of harmful to think about, because in the 21st century, a An empire America is not a very realistic viewpoint. Nobody is going to say, I think of America as an empire, or I think of America as an aristocracy, or I think of America as a war machine. Because, as we all know, war has not been a true determiner of America. Business has, as it always will be. And in order for you to understand this, you must engage bureaucracy and political governance as it's supposed to from a group perspective. And that will be the end of this discussion. Thank you for listening and enjoy your Monday, as well as tune in for tomorrow. We'll be getting into history, which we probably most likely got into already. But now you can see why I put it there. Thank you, and oh yeah, shout out to the supporters, but there are no supporters right now. So when there are, I say some more for you guys. You're welcome.